Reporting on fighting in war-torn environments and amid political upheaval is a dangerous business. Most foreign correspondents will have dramatic tales to tell, near misses with car bombs and angry mobs, and instances where it is frighteningly unclear whether an insurgent's intention is to be interviewed or to abduct them. But there is someone else who works in these extreme circumstances alongside the foreign correspondent, and they don't get to go home and regale friends with war stories in the pub. These people are fixers, and they are indispensable to all journalists working overseas. Fixers can perform a multitude of roles. Depending on the country and the story being covered, fixers are often much more than translators or drivers. They can fulfil both of these roles, but often they will also act as bodyguards. They will be key in protecting the journalist from danger which, being unfamiliar with the country, they might not have detected themselves until it was too late. Fixers are vital in introducing the journalist to important people, and for filling them in on local history and those cultural traditions which must be observed if they are to gain people's trust. Without fixers, no news would reach our newspaper pages, screens or airwaves back home. In extreme situations, where it is too dangerous for the journalist to leave the protected green zone area of a city, the fixer can be responsible for researching and even sometimes writing entire stories. Like many other kinds of journalists, fixers often draw their contacts from personal connections. But unlike other journalists, the people who they went to school with or played football or cards with are now dangerous members of the militia or violent rebel groups. People become fixers for a variety of reasons. The wage for many is just too good to turn down, particularly in countries where they can't be sure of any sort of job stability or in extreme circumstances don't know how long they might be around to provide for their families. A fixer typically earns $150 or even $200 a day, often 100 times what they would earn in a factory, or it is the amount of money a doctor would earn in a month. In some countries, another incentive is the prestige attached to working with Western organisations. In others, however, it is best to keep any association with news organisations a secret. While the journalist experiences hostility for being the outsider, the fixer is the traitor, an apostate, and has to keep their identity a secret, not only for the period they are working on the story, but often indefinitely. In some countries, fixers can't even tell their family and friends about what they do, telling them instead that they go to work for a government department every day. In places where every street has an informer, news travels fast. But this danger is braved by many fixers through a determination to ensure that accurate accounts reach the West, that corruption is exposed, and that there is enough international pressure to bring about change. For many fixers, their passion for news gathering is also their everyday profession. In lots of countries, the most competent fixers are also local journalists. These are people who, if their English is good enough, could often report on the story themselves, but they don't have links with Western news organisations, and so are consigned to operating behind the scenes. Some news organisations are happy to credit fixers in a byline, but many don't. Fixers rarely receive any form of safety training and rarely have any form of official contract or insurance. No records are kept about them, so that when organisations like the International Federation of Journalists come to compile their annual reports on media staff killed at work, they often have trouble getting more than a name. It is only the IFJ and the International News Safety Institute who routinely compile information on the deaths of fixers. Many other organisations keep extensive records on the deaths of journalists, but not on fixers. Fixers are then a mysterious, little-known group of people only brought to people's attention by journalists' anecdotes or when something sensational happens, such as fixers' abductions or death. But even then their story is often eclipsed by the plight of the journalist, and even then a starkly different value is often placed on the journalist and fixer. Ransoms are more often paid for journalists than fixers, and pleas from fixers for asylum in Western countries are very rarely met, even when the fixer is facing difficulties due to their affiliation with a Western news organisation. It's often dangerous to credit fixers with their work, but that should not prevent us from knowing that they exist and helping them whenever they are in need.